Hi, we're here with Davitt Woodwell. Davitt's going to be taking over as President and CEO of the Pennsylvania Environmental Council this coming July. Davitt, tell me a little bit about yourself, where you come from, your experience, that sort of thing.
From Pittsburgh, grew up in Pittsburgh, and did sort of the boomerang thing. Came back later in life to go to Pitt, and then eventually worked in New York State for a while at boarding school, and came back to do law school at Pitt. And made a call to PEC in law school for an internship in my first year as a 30-year-old law student, and was told by Brian Hill, sure. And since then, I've been associated with PEC for the last 23 years, all of it in Pittsburgh, but working across the state, sort of as staff attorney, then director of the office, took a 2-year leave of absence to run the River Life Task Force in Pittsburgh, doing riverfront planning for the city and development of Three Rivers Park. Back to PEC, sort of running Western Pennsylvania, and then getting more involved statewide, a lot of policy work. And then, Paul announced that he was retiring, and the PEC was looking for a new president, and I decided it was probably time to try to step up and see if I could do something about that.
Yeah, Paul King is his shoes are going to be pretty big to fill, I think.
They are very big to fill. He was actually an adjunct professor at Pitt Law when I was there. He was one of my professors. And so he's been associated with PEC the entire time I've been associated with PEC, which has been really fun to learn from him, see what he does and how he's able to make an amazing difference in a very quiet way, very effective way.
Well, you've had a long career, but also an interesting one, participating in a lot of different things. But one, as I remember, was air quality stakeholder group in Pittsburgh, but there was a unique aspect to that.
There is. During the Ridge administration, there were a lot of stakeholder groups, the regulatory, special protection waters regulatory negotiation, but there was also the Southwest Pennsylvania Ozone Stakeholders Working Group that was really one of those stakeholder processes bringing everybody together. And perhaps the best thing of it that came out for me, at least, was that at the end of the process, I was able to announce an engagement to a representative from the other side of the table, Tishy Worley, who was working for U.S. Steel, still works for U.S. Steel. So that has been a very wonderful outcome of that process.
That was probably one of the more unique outcomes of that stakeholder process.
It was, and when the Environmental Digest announced the birth of our first child, it was, I think, an odd announcement for the Environmental Digest at that point as well.
I think it's the only birth that was ever in DEP's newsletter.
I think that's right, yes. It's fun.
PEC itself, as an organization, takes a rather unique approach to a lot of different issues, and they have a lot of breadth and depth. Could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, PEC was founded in January of 1970, before the first Earth Day, and really as a policy organization, and spent a lot of time, as groups did, on policy work through the 70s and 80s, and then got very much into growth management in the early 90s when Joanne Denworth was running PEC, and started moving much more also into project work and being able to link the project and the policy, the advocacy work. So we went around the state looking at brownfield issues, convening folks before Act 2 came about, and then after that started looking at other processes with watersheds and other things, so that we were able to go out and do partnerships for cleanups, do partnerships with AMD work that would also then go, for instance, to advocating for more money in the Abandoned Mine Land Reclamation Fund. With trail work now, we plan trails, but we also advocate for more trail funding. Stormwater and combined sewer overflows are big issues in Pennsylvania. We've actually put in stormwater mitigation projects in Meadville and Ohio Pile, work in Philadelphia as well, and at the same time can then look at those issues that come up and advocate for changes to legislation. And changes last year to the Municipal Authorities Act that allow municipalities, or allow authorities to include stormwater as one of the things they work in, was really one of the outcomes of that process, plus a statewide stakeholder process.
Well, and PEC right now has how many offices?
We have 4 offices right now: Pittsburgh, Philly, Harrisburg, and Luzerne, working primarily in stormwater and water resources, which right now is a lot of focus on stormwater, combined sewer overflows, especially in Philly and Pittsburgh, trail work across the state, sustainable communities work, and a lot of energy and climate, not just shale gas, but also renewables and alternative energy.
Well, I think those regional offices put you in a good position to really get your hands dirty in local projects too, and really know what's going on.
And we partner a lot. It's if people remember the BASF ad campaigns from a long time ago. They didn't necessarily make the product, they made it better. We're involved with a lot of partnerships with a lot of local groups, being able to add technical assistance, fundraising advice, experience from across the state to really help them make their projects work. And our ability to see things at the local level and at the statewide level, I think, is really critical, because Pennsylvania is a very diverse state. It's got a lot of different things, from Presque Isle, which includes the most visited state park in the country, and we've sort of got our north coast there, down to the tidal Delaware, with ridges in between, valleys in between, issues that may have the same underlying components to them, but are also different. So as you look at post-construction stormwater control, there's different soils across the state, and how do you address that, as an example?
I think everyone's interested a little bit about what kinds of issues will be on your plate sort of in the near future in terms of PEC. Where will you, as an organization, devote your energy?
I think a lot of it's a continuation of what we're doing. The water issues in Pennsylvania are clearly very important. It's a resource we've got that, as you look at the West right now with the drought and everything else, Pennsylvania has an economic competitive advantage with a lot of the water, and after this winter, a lot of runoff. I think water will continue to be there, stormwater especially, and we're also going to be looking again at broader trail issues, because I think trails are one way to really engage the public in becoming stewards for the environment. It's a way that we found is successful with pieces of the East Coast Greenway, with the Appalachian Trail, with the Great Allegheny Passage, to really get people out and have them care and be able to interact with them and get them to become those stewards. Energy and climate is probably going to go even higher on the list. We've been very involved in the shale discussions over the last now 5 years. I think have played a leading role in the development of policy around that in the state. We participate in the Center for Sustainable Shale Development with the Institute of Politics at Pitt, and we're on the Marcellus Shale Advisory Commission that the governor put together, and again, work with a lot of different stakeholders and partners to figure out what the right answers are for that. That being said, that's not the only thing that's out there for energy. We've got to look at diversifying the generation, if it's just distributed generation going out, but how do you do that? What's the solar world? What's the hydro world? What's the wind world looking like? And really trying to develop an energy policy for Pennsylvania that is all of the above. And climate is obviously another part. We put out in 2007, we put out Pennsylvania's Climate Change Roadmap. I think we're going to go back and revisit that in a lot more depth now and see where that fits, see what parts of that still have life in them, and try to reinvigorate that process.
Okay, good. Well, thanks very much for talking with us today,
My
Davitt.
pleasure.
Good luck in your new position.
Thank you.